Caleb Williams walked into the NFL as the most hyped prospect QB in years. Painted nails, Heisman Trophy, generational talent plastered across every sports network in the country. But his rookie season and the beginning of year 2 looked really rough. Somehow, by the end of his second season, he engineered the biggest comeback in Bears playoff history, erasing an 18-point deficit against their rival Packers. The question isn't whether he turned it around, it's how it got so bad in the first place and how he was able to turn the tables. To understand how far Caleb fell, you first have to understand how high he was put in the first place. It started at Oklahoma. He arrives as a freshman in 2021, throws for 1,912 yards and 21 TDs, along with rushing for another 6 scores. In 11 games as an 18-year-old playing in the Big 12, that's not a normal freshman season. So when Lincoln Riley takes a USC job that offseason, Caleb follows him to LA. And that move right there tells you everything you need to know. A head coach relocates across the country and his freshman quarterback comes with them. It's not just loyalty, that's a coach who knows exactly what he has. What Williams does at USC in 2022 was one of the best individual quarterback seasons college football has seen in a long time. 4,537 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. He wins the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore, the Maxwell Award, and the Walter Camp Award. He's running an offense that looks 5 years ahead of everyone else on the field, and he does it with flair. The arm talent is obvious, but it's the way he moves through a pocket and extends plays that shouldn't be possible. Now, the stuff that split people right down the middle, the painted nails and his personality, the way he wore his emotions openly, celebrating big moments without an apology. A chunk of the media loved it, another chunk didn't. And that divide became the background noise surrounding him from the moment he entered the draft conversation. The Bears had positioned themselves to land the number 1 overall pick in 2024. Back in 2023, they dealt the year's top pick to Carolina in exchange for DJ Moore plus a package of future selections that ultimately handed them the first overall choice in 2024. Chicago would then let Justin Fields walk in free agency, and the franchise was resetting around one guy. Everybody knew who that guy was going to be. But before the draft, there's one moment the internet never really let go. In one of Caleb's final college games after a loss to Washington, he leaps in the stands with his mother. He's crying in uniform on camera for everyone to see. Some people respected it. Here's a competitor who cares deeply, wearing his heart right on the surface, and others took the image and ran with it, attaching it to every skeptical take about his makeup, his toughness, his ability to handle the pressure of the NFL. By the time April 2024 rolls around, the national media narrative is locked in. He's a generational and can't miss, and the Bears finally have their guy. Ryan Poles, the GM, calls him one of the most impressive prospects he's ever evaluated. Teammates from USC rave about his leadership, and every pre-draft visit, every interview, every pro day rep adds fuel to that fire. The hype machine is running at full speed, and Chicago, a fan base that had been waiting decades for a real answer at quarterback, is all the way in. But the NFL has a way of responding to that kind of entrance. It doesn't care about Heisman trophies, it doesn't care about the narrative, and in 2024, it came for Caleb Williams. Fast. Week 1, Bears host the Titans, and Caleb leads a fourth quarter comeback. Chicago wins 24-17, and for about 72 hours, the city loses its mind. There's a quarterback, a real one, and the flashes are right there for all to see. But something else is right there too, and it gets worse every single week. The offensive line is a problem, and a serious one. Defenders are getting into the backfield before Williams can even process his first read. And because of who he is, someone who refuses to take an easy incompletion, someone who keeps plays alive, he ends up absorbing punishment that piles up over a long season. By the time the year is over, he's been sacked 68 times. That ties the third most in a single season since the NFL officially started tracking sacks. 68 times, man, that's not a quarterback struggling to read the field, that's a quarterback playing behind a wall that isn't there. But the moment that really breaks open the season, the moment that changes the whole feel of 2024, comes on October 27th against Washington. The Bears lead late and they're set up to win. Then the Commanders get the ball back to midfield with less than 10 seconds left, lined up at their own 48. The Bears defense drops back into 3 deep, designed to stop the deep ball. But they didn't account for a defender to taunt the fans while the play was happening, and then to let Noah Brown catch the Hail Mary in the end zone. 52 yards, TD, and the Bears lose 18-15. That game starts a 10-game losing streak, one short of the all-time record for a number 1 overall pick. 10 straight losses, and the way they happen is almost worse than the results themselves. Blocked field goals, a botched 4th and 1 handoff, the clock running out on Thanksgiving because nobody knew when to call a timeout. Everything that could go wrong, did go wrong. By December, Troy Aikman is on the broadcast calling Williams a defeated guy after watching him writhe on the bench following a hard hit in Minnesota. That clip circulates everywhere, and it becomes the image that defines the season for people who had already made up their mind. Internally, the blame doesn't land on one person. Shane Waldron gets fired as an offensive coordinator mid-season, and the morning after that firing, Caleb stands up in front of his teammates and apologizes. A 22-year-old rookie taking his share of the blame in front of the whole room. Cole Kmet, the tight end, says Williams understood pretty quickly what his position meant to the people around him, that jobs and livelihoods were riding on his success. That takes a certain kind of maturity to absorb, let alone act on. Then Matt Eberflus gets fired as head coach after that Thanksgiving debacle, and Thomas Brown steps in as an interim. The season staggers to a 5-12 finish. The numbers aren't catastrophic: 3,541 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He set the franchise rookie record for passing yards and became the first Bears rookie quarterback to top 3,000 yards. But nobody was talking about those numbers. They were talking about the record, the losing streak, and the Hail Mary, along with the image of him on the bench looking like the weight of the entire city had landed directly on his shoulders. The bust label started showing up, not everywhere, but enough. And the question hanging over everything going into the offseason is simple: can the Bears find someone to actually fix this? The Bears' answer was Ben Johnson. Johnson had spent 3 seasons as Detroit's offensive coordinator, and what he built there was genuinely hard to argue with. Under his scheme, the Lions finished the 2024 regular season with the NFL's top scoring offense, putting up 33.2 points per game, the highest points per game average by any team in the last 5 years. And the guy running that offense was Jared Goff, another former #1 overall pick who had been written off by one franchise before Johnson stepped in and helped him turn around his career. The Bears hired Ben in January 2025. He was 38 years old, had never been a head coach, and was the most coveted offensive mind available. Chicago somehow beat out multiple teams to get him. Then Ben walked into his introductory press conference, looked at the players in the room, including Caleb, and delivered his opening message in 4 words: be comfortable being uncomfortable. That wasn't a slogan. That was a preview. Training camp that summer is where the friction becomes visible. Johnson installs a wake-up period at the start of every practice: 11 on 11, full pressure from the defense on every single snap, and no easing in. The point is to flood Caleb with information, force faster pre-snap processing, and build the kind of instincts that only come from repetition under duress. At one point during camp, Williams waves off a play call at the line of scrimmage, and Johnson immediately gets on the mic. Caleb later described it as he simply lit a fuse into the mic. Multiple outlets note that the Bears' offense looked crisper with backup Tyson Bagent running the huddle than it did with Caleb. Even some reputable reporters go on record saying they're not ruling out a benching. The internet does what the internet does with that information, and suddenly the question isn't whether Caleb Williams can become the quarterback Chicago needs, it's whether he'll even make it to week 5. Week 1 is at home, and the Bears seem to have control all game, and then all of a sudden they lose to 9. But somehow it still gets worse. Week 2 against Detroit, the Lions win 52-21. Caleb is inconsistent from the jump, and after the first scripted series, the whole thing unravels. Colin Cowherd is on air the next day saying that the marriage is already broken, that the styles don't mesh, and that Ben Johnson wants a different kind of quarterback, and everyone on the sideline can see it. The benching conversation picks back up. Caleb later opens up about where his head was at during the stretch, and he said it felt like their relationship was pretty fragile. And so the Bears are now 0-2, the offense looks broken, and the head coach and the QB appear to be operating on different wavelengths. The national media has already started writing the second chapter of the bust narrative, and now they have 2 years of material to work with. And here's the thing, they weren't entirely wrong to be skeptical. An 0-2 start with a new system with visible tension on the sideline and a backup who looked more comfortable in camp. That's an actual real situation, and the Bears were in genuine trouble. But here's where the story actually starts, because something shifted between week 2 and week 3. Not all at once, not cleanly, but the arrow stopped pointing down. And it started with a blowout to the Cowboys and one drive in Las Vegas that nobody outside of Chicago was paying much attention to at that time. The Bears in week 3 beat the Cowboys 31-14 due to the help of an insane flea flicker. Week 4, the Bears are in Las Vegas, trailing the Raiders 24-19 with under 7 minutes left. Caleb takes the field for what seems like a must-have drive, not just for the game, for the season, but maybe for the future of Chicago. What follows is an 11-play, 69-yard drive. Caleb completes 4 of 5 passes for 42 yards, adds 19 on the ground himself across 2 carries, and DeAndre Swift punches it in from 2 yards out with $1:30 left. Bears lead 25-24. They don't get the 2-point conversion, and the Raiders get the ball back, pushing it all the way into field goal range. Daniel Carlson lines up for a 54-yard attempt with about 40 seconds left. But with that, cornerback Josh Blackwell bursts off the left edge and blocks it clean, with the game over. It's a narrow win over a really bad Raiders team. But inside that locker room, something changes. The belief that had been sitting in the background quiet, not fully formed, starts to solidify. Week 5 is a bye, and week 6 is against Washington, and this one has an obvious layer of meaning for Caleb. It's the same team that threw that Hail Mary last season that started the 10-game slide. Chicago trails 24-22 late in the fourth quarter when Nashawn Wright recovers a botched handoff between Jaden Daniels and his running back at the Chicago 44-yard line with just over 3 minutes left. The Bears don't need Caleb to be spectacular here, they need him to be steady, and he is. 9 plays, 36 yards, Swift carrying it 5 times to set up the kick. Backup kicker Jake Moody in for the injured Cairo Santos on short notice. He hits the 38-yarder as time expires, and the Bears win 25-24, back-to-back walk-off wins. The pattern is starting to take shape. Caleb isn't just winning these games, he's running the right play at the right time, getting the ball out, trusting his weapons, and doing exactly what Johnson's offense asked of him. The pre-snap processing that looked so slow in week 1 and 2 is getting faster. Week 7 they come all the way back against the Giants, and week 8 they beat the Saints. 4 straight wins, and the Bears are now 4-2. Nobody who was writing the divorce story in September saw this coming. What's worth paying attention to is the dynamic shifting between Caleb and Johnson. The body language on the sideline, which has been the subject of so much commentary in the first 2 weeks, is now different. The relationship that Williams described as fragile in September is starting to build its foundation, and it's built on shared wins in uncomfortable situations. The 4-game streak doesn't just get Chicago to 4-2, it establishes something that the roster needs to carry going forward: an identity. A belief that no deficit is final and no lead is too late to fix. But this wasn't a straight line. The Bears kept finding ways to almost lose, they kept finding ways to win anyway. And that's where the identity gets forged for real. 7 comeback wins in 2025, most by any team since the 1970 merger when trailing in the final 2 minutes. It's not just a hot streak, it's a pattern. And patterns tell you something real about who a team is when the structure breaks down and the game gets raw. The Bengals game in week 9 is the one people keep coming back to because of how close it was before Caleb pulls it out. Chicago builds a 41-27 lead with 5 minutes left. That's a 2-score game with the clock winding down, and in any normal week, that's a win. But the Bengals score, convert the 2-point conversion, recover the onside kick, and score again. Just like that, it's 42-41 with 52 seconds left, and the Bears have no timeouts. The season-long identity is about to get put to its hardest test. But Caleb doesn't even need to call a timeout. He doesn't panic and doesn't scramble aimlessly. He takes a snap and rifles a pass across the middle to rookie tight end Colston Loveland on a seam route. Loveland catches it at the 35, bounces off a defender, outruns 2 more to the end zone. Bears win 47-42. The Vikings game in week 11 is almost cruel how it's structured. The Bears lead 16-3 entering the 4th quarter and then watch Minnesota score 2 touchdowns. The second, a J.J. McCarthy strike to Jordan Addison with 56 seconds left that puts the Vikings up 17-16. Chicago gets the ball back after Devin Duvernay returns the kick 56 yards to Minnesota's 40. No big pass play this time. DeAndre Swift runs it 3 straight times to set up Cairo Santos, who hits a 48-yarder as time expires. Bears 19, Vikings 17. The comeback doesn't have to be spectacular. Sometimes it's just refusing to let it in. What connects all 7 of these wins isn't a single superstar play. It's a mindset that starts with quarterback. Caleb and Ben Johnson all had to be on the same page. That relationship, described as fragile in September, practically broken in the eyes of the national media, has become the backbone of this team's identity. The guy who lit a fuse into the mic in training camp and the guy who wanted to be coached hard are finally meshing. By the time the regular season ends, the Bears are 11-6, NFC North champions, first division title since 2018. Caleb has 7 fourth-quarter winning drives, the most by any Bears quarterback since the merger, and the bust narrative is gone. Wildcard weekend, Bears vs. Packers at Soldier Field. Green Bay, the same division rival that handed Chicago one of the ugliest losses in the 10-game skid in year 1. The one that had beat them a few weeks ago off of a game-winning interception, and then lost to the Bears off of another historic comeback with a dime to DJ Moore. The city is in it, the moment is right, and then the first half happened. The Packers scored 21 points in the first 2 quarters, the Bears only scored 3. Down 21-3 at halftime, the largest home playoff deficit in franchise history. If there was ever a moment to bring back any doubt in every question that's been asked, now's the time. Inside the locker room, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams don't panic. They both reassure the team and they get right back out there. The 3rd quarter comes and goes. Bears still trail 21-6 entering the 4th. Their win probability sits at 4.6%. Then the Bears score. They score again. Then with 5:48 left and the Bears down 27-16 after Green Bay added a field goal, Caleb takes the field needing a touchdown. It's 4th and 8 with the season on the line. He buys some time and hits one of the most ridiculous throws ever to Rome Odunze to flip the field. A few plays later, he hits Olamide Seguias for a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion, and now it's 27-24 Green Bay. The Packers miss a field goal, and the Bears get the ball back with just over 2 minutes left. Working their way all the way down the field, Caleb fakes a screen to Luther Burden at the line of scrimmage. Packers cornerback Carrington Valentine bites on it. DJ Moore releases clean downfield. Caleb sees it, steps up, and delivers a strike. Green Bay gets the ball back with a $1:40 left, and the Bears defense holds on. 31-27. 25 fourth quarter points, the largest comeback in Bears postseason history, the fourth largest in any NFL playoff game ever. 1 week later, they almost pulled it off again with one of the craziest throws you'll ever see against the Rams. They fell just short after a bad interception from Caleb, but they'll probably be back. Caleb Williams' story is far from finished. He's only 24 and already has that playoff win with a division title. He's one of the most clutch QBs we have in the league. The hype was real, the struggle was realer, but the turnaround has been special. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you're new.